The grieving process is a journey, and it is so unique and different for everyone. So what might work for you might not necessarily work for someone else. I personally lost my twin brother 23 years ago and my mom and dad 11 years ago. And the way I grieved for my brother was very different to the way I grieved for my mother. And the way I grieved for my dad was very different to the way I'm grieving for my 3 dear friends I've lost to COVID. The grieving process is not a neat line from A to B. On the contrary, it is actually a roller coaster ride filled with raw emotions of love, anger, guilt, sadness, depression, isolation, and loneliness. On some days, these feelings will engulf you. You will literally feel like you are drowning alive. And just when you think that you have drowned, the waves will subside and the sun will begin to shine again. And hope begins to flicker ever so slightly. Life will never return back to the complete picture you once had, but you will learn to smile again and you will laugh again, not because you've forgotten them or have moved on. On the contrary, what you will learn through the grieving process is that they will be and always will be part of you, and you will forever hold them in your heart. We know when a person suffers a loss through death or some other cause, this induces a process of grieving. COVID deaths are robbing people of the opportunity of a final farewell, stripping the dead of their dignity and worsening the grief of the living, robbing people of the opportunity for a final goodbye. Families are feeling a sense of guilt because they cannot give their departed that send-off that they so rightly deserve. What closure meant to me. Seeing them for the last time, kissing my brother on his forehead for the last time, letting him know that everything was going to be okay, and I will be there for mom and dad. I will be that beacon of hope to my parents on their darkest days. I will hold on the fort until we meet again, holding his cheeks for the last time, singing that last hymn through my tears. For others, it may be saying a prayer for them or doing that last religious act or ritual. When it comes to COVID deaths, you must literally force yourself to remember the last time you saw their face. There is this immediate disconnect or cut off. You cannot physically see them in the casket. You can see the casket, but you cannot see them because it's sealed. You cannot physically touch them. After the funeral, the support system that was once there for family and friends are no longer, and you have hundreds of condolence messages bombarding your phone, but yet you feel so alone, digitally connected to the whole world, but yet so disconnected. Sometimes you find yourself so desperately wanting someone just to hug you, that human touch, that human connection. It may even be a phone call. You so desperately yearn for someone just to visit you or just to sit with you, and you know that they will never have the right word to say to dull that pain that you're going through. But that is okay, because their presence alone is such a priceless gift. With COVID deaths, all that I've mentioned above is not possible, except for the phone calls. I'm going to introduce you to my guest today, and she will give you or share with you some ways that you can get closure through COVID death. Joining me today is Mehreen Mia Cassimjee, a humanitarian UN Goodwill Ambassador. She's also a diplomatic official of the Global International Alliance, an international motivational speaker, and an empowerment specialist. She has her own company called the Mia Foundation, which stands for Motivate, Empower, and Advance. And today we'll be talking about grief and all the issues related to that.
I can't control what government is doing. I can't control any of these things. But what is the one thing I can control? Me. I can control me, and I can control my reaction to the virus. I can control my reaction to what people are saying, what people are doing. I can control my reactions to the grief and to the process of losing people. I can control me. And when we start to really look at what we can control, and we start to work on more what we can control. Let's enhance what we can control. Let's enhance our mental capacity. Let's enhance our thought processes. Let's enhance how we would like to look at things so that it makes it easier for us to cope. What are our strategies? Let me make it different for me first. Control what you can control. It takes away that little bit of stress of the unevenness and the imbalance, because the imbalance that happens with us is when we try to control what's beyond our control. Death is something beyond our control. Grief is within your control. Remember, grief comes out of something that you've lost. Grief comes out of something that you want and that's not there anymore. How you cope, and we'll deal with the coping mechanisms in the next one. But how you cope, the coping skills, the mechanisms, the strategies, those are things that are still within your control. The actual death of someone you have lost is not within your control. And at some point, we will touch on that regarding doctors and nurses and what they might be going through, facing the different hordes of difficulties they face on a daily basis, including our paramedics, including our police people, you name it. People that are frontliners all over the place are dealing with this constantly. How do they cope? When you have to really understand this, that the octopus is outside, I'm not part of it. It's outside of me. Let me take control of what I can control. I can control my mind. I can control my faith. I can control my hope. I can control what I'm grateful for. So the one thing I always encourage everyone to do, not just from now, but from way back when, but I think it's more apt and works more now, is every day take a time out. Take a time out of like 2 minutes or 3 minutes every day in the evening and jot down at least 3 things that you are grateful for the day. 3 things. I'm grateful that I woke up this morning. I'm grateful that I'm going to bed and I still don't need that machine. I'm grateful that I managed to do that task that I thought I'll never be able to do. Something, just something, but jot down 3 things that you are grateful for, that you got through for the day. That sense of gratitude that you have, that you give to yourself. Firstly, you're giving yourself validation. You're not looking for validation of who you are from outside of you. That's the 3 things that you're saying to yourself and giving yourself gratitude for, is meaning that you love you. You love you, you're grateful for you, and you're grateful for your efforts that you put into who you were for the day. That gratitude also gives you the sense of strength to get through the next day. Because the more you build up your gratitude for who you are and what you've endured and how you got through it, the next day when the next other stuff comes, because remember what we said earlier, the change has to happen. Choices have to happen. Time is going to evolve. But if every day you take out a 3-minute for yourself and say, I'm grateful that I got through those for the day, then your coping skills, you're able to manage by yourself anyway. So when we have to talk about grief as the core of life, go back to the questions about pre-COVID and now. The differences between the funerals we had then and the funerals we've had now. I think the worst thing for us right now is that we're not able to say goodbye. But, and some of you may disagree with me. What is the major difference with how you're able to say goodbye? What's the major difference? Is the difference in the fact that you need to be near the person who you're saying goodbye to? Or is the difference that you need to say goodbye here, what's within you? Because if it's within you, that goodbye is still within your control without being with them. It's difficult. It's difficult. But if you have to look at circumstances right now, and you know that you can't get to them to say the closure and goodbyes the way you want to, there are ways and means for you to cope. Again, the problem comes in is that no one's taken the time to help anybody with that coping mechanism. How do I do it without giving the closure? When I lost my little, I always call him my brother, sorry. When I lost him, the fact of not being able to be there, not being able to do what we normally do at that funeral, not being able to do whatever we had to do, it was awful. But then when you sit back and you think about it and you say, well, okay, well, could I still not do it now? Can I not sit now and pick up what I need to do in my prayer book and still do it? Will it not still get to him? Is God still not listening to me? Do I really have to do it in that specific way? Can I not still get praise across to him? Each faith is obviously different in how they approach it. But I'm just saying to you, remember, I'm talking to you from my experiences. Every one of us will have our own. But the whole idea is for us to understand that pre-COVID is pre. It's back then. We're currently in the situation that we're in at the moment. And we can't keep going back to saying, well, we need to go back to that. We're not going to be able to do it. When we had scientists, for example, at cabinet come up and say to us, well, we need to find a new sense of normalcy, I disagreed with that. And I still do openly. You can't tell our people that you need to go and find a new sense of normalcy. Normalcy is created from norm, which means it has to be something that's developed over time, that you do the same thing over and over. That becomes your norm. Currently, I don't think there's a single South African who has done anything that's a norm to create a normalcy. So normalcy is never going to be now. Normalcy may be even a year or two from now. We're still trying to develop and grasp what's going on around us. The grief is taken on too much. And like I said earlier, the grief is not just about death. It's the grief of losing your job. It's the grief of having the fights constantly in your home. It's the grief and the tension that's mounting because your kids are not even talking properly with you anymore. The grief is not just about a funeral and about death. COVID has given us the grief of just anxiety, the grief of stress, the grief of I don't know how anymore. But your support base is what? For many of us, the support base is our religion. For many of us, the support base is your family structure. For many of the support base is just you.
What we are hoping that you would take away from this video: we cannot control death. We cannot control when our loved ones will die, where they will die, when they will die, and how they will die. Just in the same way, I could not control how my twin brother died and where he died. He died in Mahatma Gandhi's hospital, in the emergency room, in my father's arms. I couldn't control that my mother had a massive heart attack in Addington Hospital when she was going for an endoscopy, and she passed away from that. I couldn't control that my father died alone in Addington Hospital. Those are things that I could not control. But what I could control was my response to the death and my grieving process. I could control my mind and my faith in God and my hope. And I could control the time that I took to thank God for the day and for the strength and for the breath that He's given me for that day. And in my darkest moment, gratefulness became my flicker of hope. We can't celebrate that one person that survived from COVID. We can't celebrate that one person that gallantly fought and beat the odds. And as gratefulness begins to fill your heart, it will put you in a positive mindset for the next day. If you asked any athlete or trained soldier what is the greatest battle they ever fought, they would undoubtedly say to you, their greatest battle was fought in the mind. You see, my dear friend, life's battle does not go to the strongest man, neither does it go to the fastest man. But sooner or later, it goes to the one who thinks he can. And if you believe that you have won, then you've already won. There is no obstacle too great that you will not be able to conquer. So a man thinketh in his heart, that he shall be. If this video has helped you in any way, please share this with family and friends. And remember, we are stronger together. Take care, keep safe, and God bless.